I'm not really a person that likes to be told what to do. I like to be able to control my health, my life, my schedule as much as I possibly can, which is why I resonate with Bitcoin so much. So just the whole decentralized approach to not just my money, but my life is kind of what I think changed me. And I did already speak on the low time preference behavior, but I feel like that all kind of comes in as far as like the whole like freedom, sovereign, thinking for yourself, and just even just standing up for yourself. I think that Bitcoin has allowed me to do that and just share it with people, whether they want to hear it or not.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Allison Steele back to the podcast. Allison is the founder of Optimal Wellness and a passionate Bitcoin advocate who blends yoga, health, and wellness into her journey. Great to have you back, Allison.
Thank you for having me on again. I'm so excited to chat.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what's going on in your life. But for the people who don't know you, tell us a little bit how Bitcoin and yoga got connected for you.
So I want to say it was about a year and a half ago, I got connected with some other women in Bitcoin. And one of the ladies' names is Krista, and she has a platform called Access Tribe, which is kind of a platform for women in Bitcoin. She has courses, she does podcasts, she does small events. She asked me to teach a Bitcoin yoga class on Zoom for some of the Access Tribe members. So I agreed to it right away. And then I was like, wait a minute, what's a Bitcoin yoga class? So I kind of thought about it a little bit, meditated on it a little bit, and then I realized how connected the two of them are when you really think about it, especially when you think about the first two limbs of yoga, which are the yamas and the niyamas. And for those who don't know, those are kind of like the ethical guidelines of yoga. So some people call them the restraints and the observances. So I thought about those principles that we have in the first two of the eight limbs of yoga, and I'm like, wow, these actually intersect with Bitcoin so much. But also, not only that, but the whole low time preference behavior, which I know we've talked about over and over again. And I think that having low time preference behavior when it comes to Bitcoin relates to health and yoga because you're not going to see results overnight. In Bitcoin, we are kind of taught to save for the future, not have that instant gratification and have it right now just because we want it right now. And the same goes for health and yoga. You might have, a spiritual awakening from a certain retreat or meditation or whatever it is that you're partaking in. But I think that the more you practice, the deeper you're going to go.
Kind of like going down the rabbit hole with Bitcoin.
Yes.
Another another principle that I was thinking about is self-sovereignty, because with yoga, it's up to you to take the step to do the practice. And just like with Bitcoin, self-sovereignty is something that we value in the
For
Bitcoin
sure.
space. Are there other principles like that, like connection, awareness, and discipline that also align with Bitcoin?
Definitely. And just to bounce off of your comment about being sovereign, I was just talking about in one of my classes last night about how yoga is an individual practice. It is very nice to be able to show up and practice with a group of people or, a partner or husband or whatever, but it is something that is so individualized and so personal. I love to be able to connect with other people about yoga, but it is like the more you practice, the deeper inside you go. But I know in the yoga class that I taught in Nashville and for Krista, we talked about the practice of non-stealing, which is one of the ethical guidelines in yoga. So surface level, of course, we're not going to steal something from our neighbor. We're not going to steal something from the store or whatever it might be. But then we think about how can we take that deeper? How can we not steal people's time or not steal people's energy or people's resources? And kind of the same thing goes for Bitcoin is, not your keys, not your coin. So if I have possession of my Bitcoin safely secured, you can't steal it. So that is always something that comes to mind that I love to bring up because that is not something that people are really thinking about when it comes to comparing Bitcoin and yoga.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also along the lines of stealing, fiat and inflation steal not only our time, but our money. whereas the nature of Bitcoin adds to our time because we know that when we save in Bitcoin, that gives us more time to do the things we love, like family, yoga, health. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And, when I was thinking about chatting with you again, I was thinking, I often heard lately that time is our most valuable resource. But then I was thinking, without health, time doesn't matter that much. So time is a finite resource, just like Bitcoin is finite. But what gives time its quality is having health. Yeah.
And that's
So
why one of my mentors, Dr. Jack Kruse, will say like health and wealth are fundamentally linked. So you can have one, but without the other, like your time might be limited. Like you said, with Bitcoin, it gives us more time to live, more time on the planet, more, resources, time with family, time with friends, doing what we want, which is part of like the Bitcoiner lifestyle, like you said, being sovereign. But if you're not paying attention to what you're eating, what you're putting in your body, on your body, and even the people that you're surrounding yourself with, the clothes that you're wearing, I mean, every little thing I do very intentionally. And I think that that has just slowly happened over my health journey for the last, I don't know, 15 years. But I think Bitcoin has allowed me to dial in on some of these things on a deeper level because I just have a completely different mindset ever since becoming a Bitcoiner.
tell us again, when did you become a Bitcoiner and what was it that really attracted you?
So I first heard about Bitcoin in 2017, but it wasn't until 2020 that my husband was going down the rabbit hole heavy because we had all of this time. There was a huge pandemic. We didn't know what was going on. And then we learned about the money printing. And I think that's when our eyes just really opened up to how corrupt the fiat system is. And so he was the one telling me all about Bitcoin. And I'm like, okay, like I trust your opinion enough that, I can put some of my earnings into Bitcoin. But it wasn't until about, I would say 2021 that I truly started to become a Bitcoiner, like being interested in the podcasts he was listening to and reading books that he was recommending and meeting people in the space and just learning not just about Bitcoin, but about how money works, how the economy works, or even how loans and credit cards work, because we were never taught that in school. I mean, I even went to business school and I took basic accounting and finance classes, but I feel that I didn't really learn a lot of life skills when it comes to money. So I think that the pandemic was actually a huge blessing, believe it or not, for us, not only in the sense of Bitcoin, but that's how optimal wellness came to life because I always wanted to have my own website and put yoga videos out. And when I had the time and energy to do it, there wasn't really an excuse of why not to. And I also had a great group of people that also had time and, energy to give to me to help me get the website up and running and teach me about lighting for my videos and what mic to use and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm actually very grateful. I grew a lot during the pandemic and yeah, I'm happy it's over, of course, but I mean, I don't know if it will truly ever be over in some sense, but I'm glad we are past the lockdowns and all of that kind of stuff. I learned a lot about myself and a lot about Bitcoin and a lot about many other things during that time.
Yeah, I also view it as a gift. And yes, I know there were a lot of not good things, but it did give us that time to spend on learning. So many people tell me that. So many of my guests got Bitcoin during the COVID because we had time to think and think about, well, what is important? Because before that, I was really on that treadmill of trying just to survive and stay ahead. And that helped me take a step back and say, wait a minute, is this what life's about? Being on a treadmill? I want to go back to what was it that made you decide to read the book? Was that COVID for you because your husband had already told you about it? But what was it for you that got you to start going down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, I think that he was just talking about it so much that I was starting to grasp an understanding of why it was important. So finally, I was like, okay, I love to read and I love to learn. And almost all of the books I read are like self help, health, and yoga books. So someone let us borrow, I believe it was Bitcoin and the American Dream. And it's been so long since I've read it now. I've read many Bitcoin books since then, including the Bitcoin Standard, of course. And tomorrow I plan to start The Big Print by Larry Lepard. So I'm very much so looking forward to reading that. But back to your question, I think I was just starting to understand the importance of why he was putting money into it because we used to do a lot of stocks, just simple like index fund type things. And from what I was learning, it was just kind of a no brainer. Why would I put money in there when I can put money into something that is finite?
Yeah, that's a beautiful reason. I know there's a lot of people a little bit in stocks and a little bit in Bitcoin. But the more I speak to people like Jeff Booth, I realize that by investing in that system, I'm making it stronger. And the more I put into Bitcoin, the more I am going towards the world I want to see, which is a world based on truth, honesty, and fairness for all. So it's a little bit of that mindset work and seeing the world I want to live in. Do you work on mindset?
Every day. I start my day each morning with meditation, journaling and reflection, and usually reading after that. As I said before, I do love to read, and I find that sometimes I have a hard time focusing. And so, if I read almost first thing in the morning after I've meditated and had a little bit of just time to myself, especially if it's like early in the morning and it's still a little bit dark out and the world is just so still, that is my absolute favorite time to practice gratitude and find that healthy mindset to just say, like, I'm grateful to be here. Let's kill the day. What do we have in store? What is on my mind right now? And how can I just do my very best?
Yeah, that's a beautiful practice. I too start the day with gratitude because I tried it the other way and it didn't work so well. And I feel if I can get into a place of gratitude, because there is a lot to be grateful for, I have a much better day. And like you mentioned, that's a really positive way to start the day.
It's made
Yeah.
me a just a better person overall. I am more pleasant in the morning. I am more patient throughout the day. I'm more empathetic and I don't know, I just have all good things to say when people are struggling with physical or mental health. I'm like, sit in silence for a few minutes, or follow this guided meditation, or simply close your eyes for 30 seconds and take a few deep breaths because there's so much that can offer scientifically included, even just activating that parasympathetic nervous system, providing more oxygen to the brain. Like you're going to feel better, you're going to feel more calm, and you're going to get yourself out of that fight or flight state, which I think so many people are in all day long.
Yeah, that's so true. And people are probably in that state, which is a state of stress, many because they are worrying about making enough money or a lot of people doing jobs that they don't enjoy. Yeah, our fiat system very much incentivizes you need to work, work, work until you're 60, 70 to retire. And even then, you might not have enough. And it also sort of incentivizes not always doing what we love. Whereas I think Bitcoin has taught me how valuable time is, like I mentioned. So that incentivizes doing what you love. And then when you do what you love well, you can always put the excess into Bitcoin.
That's exactly right.
I wanted to ask you, what areas of health have you been focusing on lately? You mentioned that you've been studying a little bit about Weston A. Price.
So I have been going down the rabbit hole of his work very heavily over the last 6 to 8 months, maybe, and also the work of Dr. Andrew Marino. So I'll talk about the Weston A. Price stuff first. So I had heard of Weston A. Price many times, and I kind of had an idea of some of his principles and, the things that he was promoting back, almost 100 years ago now. He is no longer around, but there is still a Weston A. Price Foundation. They still have a conference, and if you go on his website or their website, you can truly get lost with all of the resources. Like, I was laying in bed the one night on my daylight computer, just looking at a few things. And before I knew it, an hour had gone by and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to go to bed. But I was just so extremely interested in all of the different things that they are putting out there, specifically about diet, but they're also talking about other things like radiation and non native electromagnetic fields and that kind of stuff, which is really cool to see because I do think people are waking up to that. But Weston A. Price's book is called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. So that's kind of where things started with me, truly diving into his work. And the first half of the book, he is talking about all of the places he went all over the world studying the health of primitive people. And I guess you could say people adopting more of a modern white man diet and lifestyle. So back then, there were quite a few people still living primitively. So he was studying not only their overall health, but specifically their teeth because he was a dentist, their jaw, their facial structure, and their nasal passageway. So from that, I kind of learned that eating things like organs, seafood, milk, butter, and eggs are truly some of the most nutritious things that we can eat. And with just one generation of people adopting the white flour, the white sugar, the canned goods, the marmalades and jams and all of that kind of stuff, it is a huge difference in these people's health. I mean, their teeth aren't fitting in their mouth correctly. Their jaw lines are not right. They have deformities in the face or even other parts of the body, or they're just so deficient in nutrients because they're eating processed packaged foods. So they are not able to develop as they should because they're not getting what they need. So I have been studying that so much, and I think I told you, I want to say this was when we first met. I was kind of going heavy on the animal foods, but I was not eating meat. So my almost 10-year hiatus of not eating meat has come to an end. When we were in Hawaii in November, I had a steak on our last night there. And I've been going pretty hard on the grass fed and finished beef over the last few months and making things like oxtail soup for like the gelatinous broth and getting collagen more into my diet and things like that. And I recently started taking fermented cod liver oil capsules as well as grass fed liver capsules, desiccated liver capsules. So if you go on the Weston A. Price Foundation website, they have a few different companies that they will recommend as far as supplements go, but they really promote like a whole food supplement approach. So they're not going to be recommending like all of these different vitamins where you're taking, 25 supplements a day. Like, they're truly promoting real food. I am eating a lot of the muscle meat. However, I haven't gotten in me to like actually eat the liver yet. So that's why I'm taking the capsules. So my lifestyle has, I think, improved a lot since learning some of these principles. And I've always loved butter, but according to what Weston says, butter is one of the most nutritious things you can eat, especially for your teeth. So don't be shy with butter. Don't eat the fake stuff. Get it when you can, especially in June. I learned in his book that butter during summer months, specifically June, supposed to have the highest vitamin content. So this summer, I'm planning to stock up on some of like those 2 pound Amish butter rolls and just freeze them. If you don't know, butter freezes very well. So people probably think some of the stuff that I'm doing and eating and saying are so crazy, especially because I used to be vegan and vegetarian and plant based. And I think that Bitcoin has kind of opened that world to me too. Because at first, my husband Andrew was like, "Oh, do you think that like the Bitcoin space is like what made you eat meat? Because there's so many people in the carnivore world in the Bitcoin space." But I think it was kind of a mix between that, Weston's work, and a little bit of Jack Krus's work too. He is heavily telling you to eat seafood because it is high in DHA, one of the omega 3s. So that is really good for your brain. So I'm kind of learning that, like, I don't know that my brain was working to full capacity when I was not eating DHA or eating that direct seafood.
So have you actually noticed the difference or feel any difference since you've started eating meat and changing your diet?
I feel great. And one of the things that helps me kind of like determine some of this is just blood work. So I've been doing blood work over the last 6 years and just kind of comparing vegan versus vegetarian. When I was vegan, I was honestly deficient in a lot of different areas. So once I changed a few things, adding like different vitamins into my diet, things went up and then I stopped taking the vitamins. And it's just been cool to see some of the charts, even where it's going like this and then it goes up with like the omega 3s and even the vitamin D, for example. Like what I learned in Weston's book is, to actually allow the body to break down the vitamin D, you have to have fat soluble vitamins. So again, things like butter, lard, animal fats, because without it, you're not actually absorbing all of the nutrients that you could be.
Yeah, I could comment on so much. As you know, what you mentioned, the Bitcoiners are very much carnivore diet, or a lot of them are. I haven't
Mhm.
spoken about it for a long time, but I am very familiar with Weston A. Price because I studied holistic health for 30 years. I've told some people that it would actually be better for me to have an holistic health channel than a Bitcoin channel because I know more. I did know more, but now I tend to get obsessed with things. So I was obsessed with holistic health. Now I'm obsessed with Bitcoin. And I still care about health because when you feel great, you perform better. I wake up and feel great every day. And that's partly because of some of what Weston A. Price I learned from. I learned through Paul Chek, who is, in my opinion, one of the best holistic health people. You know, what Weston A. Price did there is he studied different populations and he showed that different people do better on different foods. So if you're in the equator, you tend to do better on a more vegetarian with some protein diet. But if you're an Eskimo, you do better on 90% fat and protein. So you cannot say that one diet works for everybody. So it is about finding the right balance for you. I love that people eat good steak, and I don't hear too many saying it's grass fed and organic, which I would add in there. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's about finding the right balance for you at the end of the day. And yeah,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, my approach to health is so individualized. People will ask like what I do, what I eat, and I'm like, just because that works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. I mean, we could sleep in the same house, eat the same foods, do the same exercise, and still not get the same results. So I feel that I am just always evolving because people will say, oh, like, well, you used to say this or you used to eat that. And I'm like, well, I'm learning and I'm evolving and I am just taking note of what's working for me and how I feel and how I sleep and how I look and what my blood work looks like because health is so much more than just how you feel, what you eat, and what you exercise, as you obviously know. So, I mean, I just treat myself as a human experiment, to be honest. Like, I will add things in, I will take them away. What's working, what's not? Do I think this is valuable? And sometimes I find things to be valuable, but maybe there's just a specific time and place for it. Maybe it's not something I need to do every day or focus on every single week. So, really just finding the balance and the individualized lifestyle and plan that works for you is my best approach. Like when I do wellness consultations with people, I'm like, what are your goals? What is your lifestyle? What do you want to learn? And what resources can I provide you to meet those goals and be the healthiest, happiest version of yourself?
yeah, that's a great approach. Our last thing on health, just tell me a little bit why light and non-native EMFs are so important.
So that is something that has become part of my health consciousness over the last, I don't know, 2 years or so. And I actually just finished Going Somewhere by Andrew Marino today. So that's why tomorrow I'll be able to start Larry's book. But anyway, from what I've learned, I mean, the light story is a big story. So I'll try and condense it down. But when I say light, I mean anything from the sun to artificial light to, your lighting environment when you're eating. As far as non-native electromagnetic fields go, blue light, artificial light is a non-native EMF. So something that I do every night is turn my Wi-Fi off. I have a Wi-Fi kill switch. It's very easy. I can do it from upstairs so that if I'm in my bed on my daylight computer for 20 minutes before I go to sleep, which has no blue light, no flicker, by the way, I can just take my little remote and the Wi-Fi is downstairs and it reaches it and I can just turn it off, turn it on easily in the morning. We don't even always turn it on first thing because it's kind of nice to not have that. And I recently got an adapter for my MacBook to be able to do Ethernet. So I haven't played with it yet, but that's something I intend to do. And we were just talking before we started recording about the wireless headphones and like the little pieces called dongles that you have to use now because iPhones don't have that jack for the headphones anymore. Same with the cars. So I used to do Bluetooth in my car and now I'm kind of like taking a few steps back and wiring things again. And I'm learning about like the inverse square law. So the closer you are to things, the more harmful effects there could potentially be. So I unplug everything when I go to sleep at night. Sometimes when it's cold, I'll run the space heater for like an hour before I go to sleep and then I unplug it. My phone is in a Faraday cage and on the other side of the room when I sleep. I would have it outside of the room, but if I don't have an alarm, I won't wake up. Um, Beyond that, I mean, we have our red light panel. We do our grounding and get sunlight in the eyes first thing in the morning. Ohio weather has not been cooperating as much lately, but I really try to get out, right after I do my practices of journaling and meditating and reading and just stand outside for, I don't know, 5 to 15 minutes even to get that sunlight in my bare eyes. No glasses, no contacts, just looking at the sun, grounding, breathing, connecting with nature. And that's also part of my morning routine. So, like I said before, I'm very intentional with everything I do from, those morning practices to using my red light panel, especially during the winter. It's very cloudy, very cold, very gloomy where I live, especially in the winter. I love Ohio, don't get me wrong. I like the seasons, but the winters are very cold and dark. So the red light panel kind of helps with that seasonal effectiveness disorder that some people struggle with. I like it just for kind of like a calming lighting set, in the evening. So we have our red light bulbs. We wear our blue light blocking glasses. I have my daytime ones on right now from Raw Optics, which are the yellow. So I like those for daytime computer use. I wear them into the grocery store. I don't really even go to the gym anymore. I do most of my workouts here at home or outside, or I do reformer Pilates classes. So pretty much anywhere I go into the world, though, where I know there's not going to be any kind of windows or natural light, I just try and throw the yellow blue light blockers on. They're not quite as weird as the orange ones, which I was wearing on our last podcast. And I will wear those even on the computer too. Those ones are my prescription ones. So if I have my glasses on that day and I'm going to sit down on the computer, I just put them on. I just try and do everything I can to be able to help myself where, some of these things might be considered a band-aid to some, but I'm just trying to be 1% better every day. So I've got the screen protector on my phone, the screen protector on the laptop. I wear the glasses and again, Wi-Fi kill switch, red light in the morning. I even have like a little red light pen. So when it's dark and I'm journaling, there's a little red piece, a little red light on the end, which will allow you to see what you're writing down. So just again, intentional with every aspect of life, every aspect of light as well. So when I know I'm going to be somewhere where I can't control the light environment, I do what I can. I oftentimes will even wear a hat or make sure my skin is covered because, we receive light through our eyes, but we also can receive it through our skin. So when I go to like the Bitcoin meetup this Friday, I know that the lighting is going to be poor. Everyone knows Allison and Andrew, the one with the weird orange glasses. Oftentimes people think we're just wearing orange glasses because Bitcoin. So I guess it fits the theme. However, we are doing it to protect our eyes, but almost always wearing a hat and covering our skin because we are taking that light in through our skin and other parts of our body, just like we are through the eyes. So everything I can do to be better, I'm interested in.
What a beautiful message for everybody. Tell us about your meetups.
So I am part of the Cleveland Bitcoin Club. Have been for, I want to say, I think it's coming up on a little over 2 years now, actually. So we discovered that they were doing meetups, I think on Twitter, and we became part of the group. I mean, even going to meetings where there would be just a few of us there, it is growing. I'm very excited. We have not been to one in a couple of months. They only do them once a month now, but there's starting to be meetups in other parts of Northeast Ohio, which is really cool because the Cleveland Bitcoin Club meets once a month on Friday evenings, but now I'm hearing about like Thursday evenings and Saturday mornings, and I'll actually be planning a little health is wealth event this summer. So that's going to be held at Cuyahoga Valley National Park, which is very close to where we live. So I'm planning to do a little hike for those who want to hike, and then kind of have like a chill meetup where we can talk about Bitcoin. I can demo the daylight computer. We can talk all things health and wealth. And then I plan to lead a gentle yoga class with some sound bowls. So just like you, I really like combining the two things. And I think that I will get Bitcoiners there who want to learn about health. And then I think there's going to be the health people there that want to learn about Bitcoin. So I'm excited to be able to bring those two worlds together, especially for those who are really only interested or know a lot about one of the two topics. So I'm looking forward to that. We are also part of the Columbus meetup, you could say. We like to go down to River Financial. I think they're just called River now, actually, in Columbus. They have a wonderful meetup there. We've only been to the meetups held at River, which is quarterly, I believe, but they're always having great speakers and panels and just put on phenomenal events. So I'm really grateful to have connected with some of the people that work at River and come to those events. And then we're kind of part of one of the Michigan meetups too. There's an event called Lake Satoshi every year that we really like to be part of. It's kind of like a Bitcoin camp out Bitcoin retreat type thing. It is my absolute favorite Bitcoin event that I've ever been to. We went 2 years. This year will be our third. People come with their kids, their families, their dogs. You can sit in on what you want. You can go out on the small lake that they have. People bring paddle boards. People are camping. And I think that that's how all Bitcoin events should be. Outside, I mean, this one is not completely outside. You know, the events, they have this giant garage with a projector and all of the equipment that you would need to do presentations and microphones and that kind of thing. But the garages are open, you're getting fresh air. There's people, you know, outside grounding with their shirts on, just kind of peeking into the garage and hearing what's going on. So I think that every event should be like that if possible.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like a lot of fun. So, back to Bitcoin. Since we last spoke, have you learned anything new about Bitcoin or anything that really stands out?
I'm sure I have. Give me a minute. I think that Bitcoin has changed me into a more sovereign individual. I've always liked, you know, privacy and freedom and things like that. But I think that Bitcoin really opened my eyes to living, you know, that free and sovereign lifestyle. Even today, we just went and got our own propane tank. So Andrew on the way there was like, this is actually pretty sovereign of us because we have a propane tank simply to dry our clothes. So our dryer is fueled by propane, and we have been using the propane tank that pretty much came with the house for the last 6 years. And we pay $100 a year to rent this stupid thing. So we've decided now that it's empty and we have to get more propane that we're just going to get rid of it and pay for our own. So just simple things like that that you I'm sure this sounds completely ridiculous, but even things like that is just like I want to be in control of my time, my energy, and even my propane. And we're even, you know, considering we live on about 6 acres. A lot of that is like woods and swamp and things like that. But we love it here. But now we're like, well, how can we get more land and have more privacy and more freedom? There's actually, I may have even mentioned this on the last podcast. There's an area near us called Freedom, Ohio, and Andrew is very set on looking at land out there simply because of the name of it. And it's actually quite close to where we live right now. So we really like living like in a township, not having those restrictions of the city, like where we live now, like there's not a sound ordinance. There's a lot of things you can do out here that you're going to get in trouble with the law if you're doing elsewhere. So, just becoming, thinking for myself, even when the vaccine mandates were coming out and things like that. I'm not really a person that likes to be told what to do. I like to be able to control my health, my life, my schedule as much as I possibly can, which is why I resonate with Bitcoin so much. So just the whole decentralized approach to not just my money, but my life is kind of what I think changed me. And I did already speak on the low time preference behavior, but I feel like that all kind of comes in as far as like the whole like freedom, sovereign, thinking for yourself, and just even just standing up for yourself. I think that Bitcoin has allowed me to do that and just share it with people, whether they want to hear it or not.
Have you and Andrew considered Bitcoin miners to heat your house?
We have. So we have an old S9 that he used to run, and it didn't give off a whole lot of heat because it was not turned all the way up because it was quite loud. So we have considered getting more of those and doing that. And we've also considered putting one in the garage to kind of build out a garage gym. However, we have learned a lot, like I said before, about the non-native EMFs. So that's honestly one of the main things that has deterred us from doing that, because it does require Wi-Fi, and we turn our Wi-Fi off sometimes for 12 plus hours a day. So we wouldn't really be getting as much of a benefit if we were turning our Wi-Fi off all the time. But we have had it kind of like as a space heater, and it's a nice conversation piece too when people come over, or like when my dad comes into town. Like, he's not very familiar with Bitcoin, so he'll look at it and he's like, kind of shows interest in it. Or if I just have a friend over, they're like, what the heck is that? Because he had it in this cooler to try and mitigate some of the sound from it with like this foam padding on the inside. I don't know where exactly he got this idea from. I was just good with it, cool with it. So we do have one, and we used to kind of use it as a little space heater. So hopefully I would be more open to running it again if it were in the garage, because the garage kind of sits on the bottom part of our house. So it would be 2 stories below from where we sleep. So we'll see. Like I said, we are trying to be more sovereign, which is one of the reasons we don't have a gym membership anymore, because we're just trying to do our own thing mixed with, teaching some yoga classes. And I'm in training right now to teach Pilates reformer. So I love going there because it's small group training. She doesn't have a bunch of overhead lights on. There's not a bunch of Wi-Fi. She doesn't even have Wi-Fi there. So there's not a bunch of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth around me. I don't have to wear shoes, aka foot prisons. I just feel more freedom there. And I feel that it's just a more healthy and more authentic environment for me to be able to train in if I'm not doing my workouts here in the house in front of my red light panel, or outside with my feet in the grass under the sunshine.
Yeah, I love it. Is there a spiritual side to Bitcoin?
I do think so, because kind of like yoga, as we said before, it's kind of like an individual practice. And I think the same could go for Bitcoin. And I truly think that like many practices can be spiritual, especially if you are manifesting things within that world, or just putting a lot of time and focus into it and connecting with other people. I mean, connection is so much of my practice in, just life in general, but specifically like health, wellness, yoga, and Bitcoin. And I think that connecting with people, like truly connecting with people, is very spiritual to me. Not just having, basic conversations. How are you? What's the weather like? Blah, blah, blah. Like, how can we actually connect on a deeper level than just surface level topics? So yeah, I would say Bitcoin can be very spiritual, especially when you're combining it with some of the practices that we've been talking about.
Yeah. Well, Allison, you are very inspiring. You practice what you preach, and it's really inspiring to see and to hear that you are trying to improve your life 1% every day. That is a wonderful way to improve and to grow. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to put links to your website and to your X. Is there anywhere else people can find you?
I am also on Instagram. I'm pretty active on Instagram with some of the health things. So my Instagram, I will give to you, but it's Allison Steele 819. And then I also have optimalwellness.health, which is my website, but that's also the business page that I use for my retreats and other health things. So would love to connect more with everyone. And I also do monthly or bi-monthly now email blasts. So on my website, if you scroll to the bottom of the homepage, there's a little section where you can put your email and your first name, and you will then start getting emails every other month from me slash optimal wellness talking about anything health and wellness related. Sometimes I'll put out free videos. Sometimes I will do recipes. I've done a few recently that are very big topics such as non-native EMFs and blue light and even things like grounding or I don't know, methylene blue. There's so many things that I'm just so eager to share with people. And that's actually why I started doing them every other month because I'm taking very big topics and just trying to dissect them down so that anyone can understand and anyone can seek out more. So I just like to give people resources, break it down to this is why it's good. This is why it's not good. Here's why you should or shouldn't do this practice. If you want to learn more, here's a book, here's a link, here's a podcast. That's one of my favorite things to do. And I think that's why I resonate with the Weston A. Price Foundation website so much because they have a lot of pages where it's like, here's some information about this topic, but then underneath, here's a podcast, here's another link, here's a video. And I just eat that kind of stuff up.
Yeah. Proof of work, right? And also trust, but verify.
That's exactly right.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.